Amidst the misery of the streets, a hungry girl decides to share her only bread with a sad boy in a wheelchair. Without knowing it, she had touched the heart of the son of the richest man in town. 2 days later, her life changes unexpectedly when she is sought out by an elegant woman in a luxury car. What seemed like a simple act of kindness transforms into a miracle that no one could predict. The streets of South Boston were unforgiving in late November. A harsh wind swept through the narrow alleys, sending discarded newspapers tumbling across the cracked sidewalks. In this forgotten corner of the city, where abandoned buildings sagged under the weight of neglect, lived 8-year-old Lily Thompson. Lily hadn't always been homeless. There was a time when she had a small apartment with her grandmother, a kind woman who had raised her after her parents abandoned her as an infant. But 6 months ago, her grandmother had fallen seriously ill, and their world had collapsed around them. Medical bills piled up, their savings disappeared, and eventually they lost their tiny apartment. Her grandmother now stayed at a shelter run by nuns across town, too frail to care for herself properly. Lily visited her twice a week, but the shelter couldn't accommodate children full-time. So Lily spent her days on the streets, surviving through a combination of resourcefulness, determination, and occasional kindness from strangers. Despite the hardship, Lily possessed something remarkable, an inextinguishable light in her eyes. Her clothes were worn and patched, her blonde hair often tangled, but her smile could brighten even the darkest alley. She had a way of finding beauty in the smallest things, a bird's song, a patch of sunlight, or the kindness of a passerby. On this particular morning, Lily had managed to collect enough change from kind strangers to buy a small loaf of bread. Mrs. Donovan at Southie Bakery had taken a liking to her and always gave her the freshest bread, sometimes slipping in an extra pastry when no one was looking. Today, however, it was just the bread, still warm from the oven, wrapped in a piece of waxed paper. "This'll be perfect," Lily whispered to herself, clutching the package to her chest. The bread represented her only meal for the day, and she planned to savor every bite. With her precious package secured, Lily decided to eat at her favorite spot, Commonwealth Park, where an ornate fountain stood at its center. Though it was too cold for the fountain to be running, the area was still beautiful, with its carefully maintained pathways and benches that weren't too uncomfortable to sit on. As Lily entered the park, she noticed something unusual near the fountain. A boy about her age sitting alone in a wheelchair. This wasn't just any wheelchair. It was sleek and modern, with what looked like electronic controls and specialized cushions. The boy wore expensive clothes, a tailored wool coat, pressed pants, and shiny leather shoes. Despite his obvious wealth, his expression was unmistakably sad. Lily hesitated for a moment. She wasn't accustomed to approaching strangers, especially those who were clearly from a different world than hers. But something about the boy's loneliness called to her. He sat watching other children play at a distance, his hands resting limply on the controls of his wheelchair, his eyes following their movements with undisguised longing. Taking a deep breath, Lily approached him. "Hi," she said simply, standing a few feet away. The boy looked startled, as if unused to being addressed directly. He glanced around, perhaps checking if she was speaking to someone else. "I'm Lily," she continued, taking another step closer. "What's your name?" "Ethan," he replied after a moment's hesitation. His voice was soft and well-articulated, but tinged with surprise. "Ethan Montgomery." "Nice to meet you, Ethan," Lily said, offering him her brightest smile. "Do you come to this park often? I've never seen you here before." Ethan shook his head. "No, this is my first time. My nurse usually takes me to Beacon Hill Park, but she's sick today. My temporary caretaker doesn't know the usual routine." He glanced over his shoulder at a man in a dark suit standing a respectful distance away, talking on a phone with his back turned. "Well, you picked a good park," Lily said enthusiastically. "This fountain is really pretty in the summer when it's running. And there's a man who comes and plays saxophone on that bench over there on Saturdays." She pointed to a wooden bench beneath a large maple tree. Ethan's expression remained guarded, but Lily noticed a flicker of interest in his eyes. Taking it as encouragement, she continued chatting, telling him about the park's resident squirrels and the best spots to watch the sunset. As they talked, Lily's stomach growled audibly. She blushed, embarrassed, and reached for her package of bread. Breaking it in half, she offered a portion to Ethan without a second thought. "Would you like some?" she asked. Mrs. Donovan makes the best bread in South Boston. Ethan stared at the offered bread with confusion, then looked up at Lily's earnest face. You're giving me your food? Just sharing, Lily corrected him. That's what friends do, right? Friends? The concept seemed foreign to him, at least in this context. Well, we're talking, aren't we? That's how friendship starts. Lily's logic was simple and unassailable. Slowly, Ethan reached out and took the offered bread. From his backpack, he pulled out an expensive-looking container. I have these chocolate biscuits, he said, opening the container to reveal perfectly arranged cookies that looked like they belonged in a gourmet bakery. We could trade. Lily's eyes widened at the sight of the cookies. That's more than fair, she said with a laugh, sitting down on the edge of the fountain, close enough to talk comfortably but respectful of his personal space. As they ate, sharing their respective treats, the initial awkwardness began to dissolve. Lily asked Ethan about his wheelchair, not with pity or uncomfortable curiosity, but with genuine interest, the same way she might ask about a bicycle or a pair of roller skates. It's custom-made, Ethan explained, his voice becoming animated for the first time. It has a motor and special controls that I can manage even though my hands don't work very well. The battery lasts for 2 days, and it can go up to 5 miles per hour. That's so cool, Lily exclaimed. It's like your own personal vehicle. Can it go through puddles? Ethan laughed, a sound that seemed to surprise even him. Yeah, it can. The wheels are designed to handle different terrains. But my nurses usually don't let me go through puddles. They say it makes a mess. That's no fun, Lily declared. Puddles are the best part of rainy days. Their conversation flowed easily after that. Ethan explained about his condition, a form of cerebral palsy that affected his legs and partially his hands. He had been born prematurely, and complications during birth had resulted in his disability. Lily listened without judgment or discomfort, asking questions, but never making him feel like he was different or strange. In turn, Lily told him about her favorite spots in the city, carefully avoiding mentions of her homelessness. She described the library where she spent rainy days, the kind hot dog vendor who sometimes gave her free meals, and the colony of cats that lived behind an old warehouse that she occasionally fed with scraps. You know a lot about the city, Ethan observed. My parents never let me explore. They say it's not safe. Parts of it aren't, Lily acknowledged. But there's so much to see if you know where to look. They were so engrossed in their conversation that they didn't notice the man in the suit approaching until he was standing right beside them. Mr. Ethan, he said in a formal tone, it's time for your physical therapy appointment. Ethan's face fell, the animation draining away to be replaced by the same sadness Lily had first observed. Already? I'm afraid so, sir. Your father was very clear about maintaining your schedule. Ethan turned to Lily, genuine regret in his eyes. I have to go. That's okay, she said, standing up and brushing crumbs from her worn jeans. It was nice meeting you, Ethan. You too, Lily. He hesitated, then added, Maybe I'll see you here again sometime. Lily's smile returned full force. I'd like that. I come here most days around noon. As the suited man wheeled Ethan away toward a black luxury car waiting at the park entrance, Ethan twisted in his chair to wave goodbye. Lily waved back, her half of the bread long gone, but her heart feeling surprisingly full. She didn't know then that this chance encounter would change both their lives forever. All she knew was that she had made a new friend, something precious in her often lonely existence. The Montgomery estate sprawled across 5 acres in Brookline, one of Boston's most exclusive suburbs. Behind wrought iron gates and manicured hedges stood a Georgian-style mansion that looked like it belonged in a historical museum rather than a residential neighborhood. Inside this monument to wealth and privilege, Ethan Montgomery sat in his bedroom, staring out the window at the pristine gardens below. 2 days had passed since his encounter with Lily at Commonwealth Park, and he couldn't stop thinking about her. There had been something different about her, something refreshing and genuine, that stood in stark contrast to the carefully calculated interactions that defined his daily life. Ethan, honey, are you ready for lunch? His mother, Catherine Montgomery, appeared in the doorway. With her perfectly styled blonde hair and tailored Chanel suit, she looked more like she was heading to a corporate board meeting than having lunch with her son. I'm not hungry, Ethan replied, not turning from the window. Catherine approached, her high heels clicking on the polished hardwood floor. Dr. Melissa says you need to maintain a consistent eating schedule. It's important for your medication regimen. Her voice was gentle but firm, the voice she used when she'd already made up her mind about something. Ethan sighed and maneuvered his wheelchair away from the window. "Can I ask you something, Mom?" "Of course, darling." Catherine sat on the edge of his bed, careful not to wrinkle her skirt. "Could I go back to Commonwealth Park today, instead of Beacon Hill?" Catherine's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. "Commonwealth Park? Why would you want to go there? It's not nearly as well maintained as Beacon Hill, and the accessibility pathways aren't as good." Ethan hesitated. He wasn't sure why, but he felt protective of his encounter with Lily. It was something special, something that belonged just to him, rare in a life where everything was monitored, scheduled, and supervised. "I just liked it there," he said finally. It felt different. Catherine studied her son's face. In her busy life of managing the Montgomery Foundation and supporting her husband Robert's business ventures, she sometimes forgot to really look at Ethan. Now she noticed something she hadn't seen in a long time, a spark of interest, maybe even excitement in his eyes. "Well, I suppose we could try it," she said slowly. "But Davidson will need to go with you, and you'll need to be back by 3 for your session with Dr. Hawkins." "Thanks, Mom." For the first time in days, Ethan smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Catherine felt a pang in her heart. When had her son's genuine smiles become so rare? Had she been so caught up in providing him with the best medical care, the best education, the best of everything material that she'd forgotten about his happiness? She pushed the thought away. "Come on now, Mrs. Peterson has prepared your favorite, grilled chicken with that special sauce you like." As they made their way to the dining room, Catherine couldn't help but wonder what had happened at Commonwealth Park to bring that smile to her son's face. In another part of Boston, Lily was huddled in her makeshift shelter, a relatively dry space between a dumpster and the wall of an abandoned building, protected from view by a collection of discarded wooden pallets. She had lined the space with flattened cardboard boxes and covered them with a tarp she'd found behind a hardware store. It wasn't much, but it kept the worst of the wind and rain away. The temperature had dropped overnight, and Lily had piled on every piece of clothing she owned: 2 t-shirts, a hoodie, her only pair of jeans, and a woman's coat she'd found in a donation bin that was far too big but wonderfully warm. Still, the cold seeped through, making her fingers stiff and her nose run. Despite the discomfort, Lily's thoughts kept returning to Ethan. She wondered what his house looked like, probably huge, with lots of rooms and warm blankets. Did he have brothers or sisters? Were his parents nice? She hoped they were. Ethan seemed so lonely sitting in that park. At noon, despite the cold, Lily made her way to Commonwealth Park. She didn't really expect Ethan to be there again. Why would someone who clearly had everything come back to a random park to see a girl like her? Still, she had nothing better to do, and the park's public restrooms offered a chance to wash her face and hands with warm water. To her astonishment, as she approached the fountain, she saw a familiar wheelchair and its occupant already waiting there. Ethan was bundled up in what looked like a very expensive winter coat, with a soft scarf wrapped around his neck and a knit hat pulled down over his ears. Behind him stood the same suited man, maintaining a watchful distance. "Ethan!" Lily called out, running the last few yards. "You came back!" Ethan's face lit up when he saw her. "Hi, Lily. I wasn't sure you'd be here." "It's pretty cold today." "I'm always here at noon," Lily said, trying to hide how cold she really was. She had learned long ago that complaining never improved anything, unless it's raining really hard. "I brought lunch," Ethan said, gesturing to a bag attached to the side of his wheelchair. "Mrs. Peterson, she's our chef, made enough for 2. I told her I might meet a friend." The word friend hung in the air between them, precious and new. Lily felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the temperature. "That's awesome," she said, sitting down on the same spot at the fountain's edge where she'd sat 2 days before. "What kind of lunch?" With some difficulty, Ethan managed to retrieve the bag and open it, revealing 2 containers, 2 bottles of apple juice, and cloth napkins. Real cloth, not paper. "Chicken sandwiches, apple slices with caramel dip, and chocolate chip cookies," he announced proudly, as if he'd made them himself. Lily tried not to look too eager as Ethan handed her a container, but her stomach growled audibly. She hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon, when she'd managed to get a half-eaten burger from behind a fast food restaurant. "This looks amazing," she said, carefully opening the container to reveal a sandwich that looked like it belonged in a gourmet deli, cut into perfect triangles with the crusts removed. They ate together, sharing stories between bites. Ethan told her about his homeschooling with private tutors, his collection of model airplanes that his father helped him build, and the indoor pool where he did physical therapy 3 times a week. "Do you really have a pool inside your house?" Lily asked, wide-eyed. "Yeah, it's heated too. My physical therapist says swimming is the best exercise for me because the water supports my body weight." Ethan took a sip of his juice. "What about your house? What's it like?" Lily froze mid-bite. She hadn't prepared for this question. Usually she avoided talking about her situation, not out of shame, but because adults tended to get weird about it, asking too many questions, or worse, threatening to call social services. "I don't really have a house right now," she said finally, deciding that honesty was the best approach with Ethan. "My grandma got sick and we lost our apartment. She stays at a shelter for old people, but they don't take kids, so I kind of stay wherever I can." Ethan stared at her, his sandwich forgotten in his hands. "You're homeless, but where do you sleep? What about when it rains or snows?" "I have a place," Lily said quickly, not wanting him to worry. "It's dry most of the time, and I know all the good spots where people don't bother you. The library lets me stay until closing time, and there's a laundromat on 3rd Street, where the owner lets me warm up when it's really cold." Ethan's eyes filled with a mixture of concern and something else. Not pity, which Lily was used to seeing, but a kind of wondering admiration. "And you gave me half your bread the other day," he said softly, "when it was probably all you had to eat." Lily shrugged, uncomfortable with his focused attention. "It's no big deal. That's what friends do, right?" "Right," Ethan agreed, but his voice was distant, his mind clearly working through something. Abruptly, he looked up at her. "You should come to my house." "What?" Lily nearly choked on her apple slice. "To my house," Ethan repeated, growing more animated. "We have so many empty rooms and tons of food, and it's warm all the time." "I can't just go to your house, Ethan," Lily said, laughing a little at the absurdity of the idea. "Rich people don't invite random kids to their mansions." "You're not random," Ethan insisted. "You're my friend. My only real friend." The sincerity in his voice was startling. Before Lily could respond, the suited man approached them. "Mr. Ethan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need to depart in 10 minutes to maintain your schedule." "Thanks, Davidson," Ethan replied, then turned back to Lily as Davidson retreated. "Will you at least think about it? Coming to visit me. Your parents would never allow it," Lily said gently, recognizing the impossibility of the situation. "They might," Ethan insisted, "especially my mom. She runs a foundation that helps people. And my dad, well, he's really busy, but he usually gives Mum whatever she wants." Lily smiled at his persistence. "Tell you what, let's meet here again and we can talk more about it. Maybe you could ask your parents first?" Ethan's face fell slightly, but he nodded. "Okay. Can you come tomorrow? Same time?" "I'll be here," Lily promised. It wasn't like her calendar was full of other engagements. As Davidson returned to collect Ethan, the boy reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small object. "Here," he said, pressing it into Lily's hand, "in case it gets really cold tonight." Lily looked down to find a hand warmer, the expensive kind that could be recharged and reused. "Ethan, I can't take this." "Please," he interrupted. "I have like 10 of them. I never use them all." Their eyes met, and Lily understood that this wasn't charity. It was friendship. "Thanks," she said simply, tucking the hand warmer into her pocket. "See you tomorrow." "See you tomorrow," Ethan echoed as Davidson began wheeling him away. Lily watched them go, clutching the hand warmer in her pocket. It was still warm, just like the feeling that had begun to grow in her chest. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. Robert Montgomery's corner office on the 38th floor of Montgomery Tech Tower offered a panoramic view of Boston's skyline. Behind his imposing mahogany desk, floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a city that, in many ways, he helped shape. As the founder and CEO of Montgomery Innovations, a technology company specializing in artificial intelligence and robotics, Robert was one of the wealthiest men in Massachusetts, with a fortune estimated at several $billions. At 53, Robert cut an impressive figure, tall with salt and pepper hair and the trim physique of someone who made time for the gym despite an overwhelming schedule. He was reviewing quarterly projections when his wife Catherine entered without knocking, the only person in the building who could do so without consequences. "We need to talk about Ethan," she said without preamble, settling into one of the leather chairs facing his desk. Robert glanced at his watch, a custom Patek Philippe that had cost more than some people's homes. "I have a board meeting in 20 minutes. "This is important, Robert." Catherine's tone made it clear she wouldn't be dismissed. "Ethan's been going to Commonwealth Park the last few days." "Commonwealth Park?" Robert frowned. "Isn't that in South Boston? Why would his caregivers take him there? It's not exactly suitable for his needs." "He requested it specifically," Catherine said. "And now I know why. He's made a friend." Something in her voice made Robert set down his tablet and give her his full attention. "A friend? What kind of friend?" "A little girl his age. Her name is Lily." Catherine paused. "She's homeless, Robert." Robert blinked, processing this unexpected information. "Homeless? As in living on the streets?" "Yes, her grandmother is in a shelter, but they don't take children. According to Davidson, who's been observing their interactions, this girl has been surviving on her own for months. And Ethan is friends with her?" Robert struggled to wrap his mind around the concept. "More than friends. He's fixated on helping her." Catherine leaned forward. "Robert, he came to me last night with a proposal. A detailed, well-thought-out proposal about how we could help this girl. He wants us to meet her." Robert sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. "Catherine, we can't get involved with some random street child. There are proper channels for these situations. Social services, foster care." "This isn't just some random child," Catherine interrupted, her voice unusually sharp. "This is a little girl who shared her only food with our son, who talks to him like he's a normal boy, not a condition to be managed. When was the last time you saw Ethan excited about anything? Or anyone?" The question hung in the air between them. Robert's gaze drifted to a framed photo on his desk, Ethan at age 4, laughing on a swing that had been specially adapted for him. That uninhibited joy had become increasingly rare as Ethan grew older and became more aware of his differences. "What exactly does he want us to do?" Robert asked finally. "He wants us to offer her a place to stay, education, a chance." Catherine's expression softened. "You should have seen him, Robert. He had spreadsheets. He calculated the square footage of our guest house, researched schools with good support programs, even made a list of potential legal issues we might face and how to address them." Despite himself, Robert felt a flicker of pride. That analytical mind. It reminded him of himself at that age. "The guest house is over 3,000 square feet, he mused aloud. "It's just sitting empty most of the year." Catherine recognized the shift in his tone. After 20 years of marriage, she knew when her husband was moving from resistance to problem-solving. "Ms. Jenkins has already looked into the legal aspects," she said, referring to her personal assistant. "We could become her legal guardians without much difficulty, especially with our connections. The alternative is she ends up in the foster care system, which is already overburdened." Robert was silent for a long moment, his mind working through scenarios, contingencies, potential problems, and solutions. It was how he approached everything in life, like a complex equation that needed solving. "I want to meet this girl first," he said finally. "Before we make any decisions." Catherine smiled, knowing she'd won. "Ethan's meeting her at the park today at noon. I thought we might surprise him and join them." Robert checked his watch again and sighed. "I'll have Marlowe reschedule the board meeting." At Commonwealth Park, Lily waited anxiously by the fountain. The day was slightly warmer than yesterday, but still cold enough that her breath formed small clouds in the air. She'd spent the morning at the public library, using their bathroom to wash up as best she could and combing her hair with her fingers. She was wearing her cleanest clothes, jeans with only one small tear at the knee, a faded blue hoodie, and her oversized coat. The hand warmer Ethan had given her was clutched in her pocket, providing a comforting warmth against her palm. When she spotted the now familiar wheelchair approaching, she waved enthusiastically. But as Ethan got closer, Lily realized he wasn't alone. Behind him walked a tall, imposing man in an expensive overcoat and a beautiful blonde woman who could only be his mother. They had the same eyes. Lily felt her stomach drop. She'd been afraid of this moment. Were they coming to tell her to stay away from their son? Rich people probably didn't want their children associating with homeless kids. "Lily," Ethan called out, his face bright with excitement. He seemed oblivious to her sudden anxiety. "I brought my parents to meet you." Lily stood frozen as the elegant family approached. Up close, Ethan's mother was even more intimidating, perfectly dressed in a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than everything Lily had ever owned put together. His father was tall and powerful-looking, with intelligent eyes that seemed to be assessing her. "Hello, Lily," the woman said, her voice surprisingly warm. "I'm Catherine Montgomery, Ethan's mother, and this is my husband, Robert." "It's nice to meet you, Lily," Robert said, extending his hand formally. Lily stared at the offered hand for a moment before remembering her manners. She wiped her palm on her jeans before shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you too, sir. Ethan has told us a lot about you," Catherine continued. "He says you've been very kind to him." Lily glanced at Ethan, who was practically bouncing in his wheelchair with nervous energy. "He's my friend," she said simply, not knowing what else to add. "Would you mind if we sat and talked for a while?" Catherine gestured to a nearby bench. Sure," Lily replied, her heart pounding. She sat on the edge of the bench while Catherine settled beside her. Robert remained standing, and Ethan positioned his wheelchair next to them. "Ethan tells us you're currently without permanent housing," Catherine said gently. Lily flinched at the direct approach but nodded. "My grandma got sick. We couldn't pay the rent anymore." "And where is your grandmother now?" Robert asked. "She's at St. Mary's Shelter for Women. They take care of her there, but they don't have room for kids." Lily twisted her hands in her lap. "I visit her on Tuesdays and Fridays when they have open visiting hours." "And your parents?" Catherine inquired. Lily's expression closed off slightly. "They left when I was a baby. It's always been just me and Grandma." Catherine and Robert exchanged glances that Lily couldn't interpret. "Lily," Catherine said carefully, "Ethan has a proposition for you, and we'd like to discuss it. But first we were wondering if you'd like to join us for lunch. It's a bit cold out here and there's a nice cafe just down the street." Lily hesitated, looking from Catherine to Robert to Ethan. Ethan nodded encouragingly. "Okay," she agreed, standing up. "But I should probably tell you I don't have any money for food." Catherine's smile held no pity, only kindness. "This is our invitation, Lily, our treat." The cafe Catherine had mentioned turned out to be an upscale bistro with linen tablecloths and real silverware. Lily had never been in such a fancy place and felt immediately out of place in her worn clothes and scuffed sneakers. But the maitre d' greeted Catherine and Robert by name and led them to a private table in the back without a second glance at Lily. Once they were seated and had ordered a grilled cheese sandwich and hot chocolate for Lily at Catherine's gentle prompting, Ethan could no longer contain himself. "Did you tell her yet?" he burst out, looking at his parents expectantly. "We're getting to that, Ethan," Robert said, a note of fond exasperation in his voice. "These things require a certain approach." "Tell me what?" Lily asked, her curiosity overcoming her nervousness. Catherine leaned forward slightly. "Lily, we understand you're in a difficult situation, and we're in a position to help if you'd allow us to." "Help how?" Lily asked cautiously. "We have a guest house on our property," Catherine explained. "It's a separate building with its own entrance, kitchen, everything. It's currently empty. We'd like to offer it to you as a place to stay." Lily stared at her, certain she'd misheard. "You want me to live at your house?" "On our property, yes," Catherine confirmed. "You'd have your own space, but be close enough that you and Ethan could spend time together. We'd also like to enroll you in school, the same private academy where Ethan's tutors come from. And of course, we'd help you visit your grandmother regularly." Lily's mind struggled to process what she was hearing. This had to be a joke or a dream. Things like this didn't happen to kids like her. "Why would you do that?" she asked bluntly. "You don't even know me." It was Robert who answered, his deep voice thoughtful. "We know that you shared your only food with our son. We know that you talk to him like a person, not a disability. And we know that since meeting you, Ethan has shown more enthusiasm and engagement than we've seen in years. You've given our son something we couldn't buy with all our resources," Catherine added softly. "Genuine friendship. We'd like to repay that kindness if you'll let us." Lily looked at Ethan, who was watching her with hopeful eyes. "You really want me to come live near you?" "More than anything," Ethan said earnestly. "We could hang out every day, And you'd have your own room with a real bed and as many blankets as you want. And you wouldn't have to be cold or hungry ever again. The sincerity in his voice made Lily's throat tight with emotion. She'd spent so long just trying to survive. The concept of safety and comfort seemed almost foreign. "What about my grandma?" she asked, her voice small. "I can't leave her alone." "We've already spoken to the director at St. Mary's," Catherine said gently. "Once we have legal guardianship of you, we can apply to become your grandmother's caregivers as well. We have a medical suite in our home where she could receive the care she needs while being close to you." Lily felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. The possibility of having her grandmother back, of both of them being safe and cared for, it was overwhelming. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," Ethan urged, unable to contain himself. "Please, Lily." Robert cleared his throat. "Perhaps we're moving too quickly. Lily, we understand this is a lot to process. Why don't we start with a visit? You could come see the guest house, get a feel for the place. No commitments yet." Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'd like that," she said. "And I'd like to tell my grandma about it when I visit her tomorrow." "Of course," Catherine agreed. "Family is important. We wouldn't want to separate you from her." The waiter arrived with their food then, placing a perfectly made grilled cheese sandwich in front of Lily. The bread was golden brown, the cheese melting out the sides just right. The hot chocolate came in a real mug with whipped cream on top. As Lily took her first bite, the warmth and flavor seemed to represent everything that was happening. Unexpected, overwhelming, and somehow perfect. She looked across the table at Ethan, who gave her a thumbs up, his eyes bright with excitement. For the first time in months, Lily allowed herself to feel something dangerous and fragile: hope. St. Mary's Shelter for Women occupied a renovated church in Dorchester, its stained glass windows casting colorful patterns across the worn linoleum floors. The main sanctuary had been converted into a dormitory with rows of neatly made beds, while the former Sunday school rooms now served as a dining area, medical station, and common room. Lily sat beside her grandmother's bed, holding her thin, veined hand. Martha Thompson was 68, though her illness made her appear much older. Her once robust frame had diminished, leaving her small and fragile beneath the shelter's thin blankets. But her eyes, the same deep blue as Lily's, remained sharp and alert. "You're looking better today, Grandma," Lily said, trying to sound cheerful. It wasn't entirely a lie. There was more color in Martha's cheeks than during her last visit. "And you're looking cleaner than usual," Martha replied with a knowing smile. "Did you find a new place to wash up?" Lily hesitated. She had rehearsed this conversation all morning, but now that the moment had come, she wasn't sure where to begin. "Grandma, something kind of amazing happened," she said finally. "I made a friend at Commonwealth Park. His name is Ethan." "That's wonderful, dear," Martha said, genuine pleasure warming her voice. "It's not good for a child to be alone all the time. He's not just any friend, Grandma. He's in a wheelchair, and his parents are really rich." Lily took a deep breath. "They want to help us." Martha's eyes narrowed slightly. "Help us how?" Lily explained everything. Meeting Ethan, sharing her bread, their conversations in the park, and finally the Montgomery's offer. As she spoke, Martha's expression shifted from skepticism to disbelief to cautious hope. "They want you to live in their guest house," Martha clarified when Lily had finished. "And they want to help me too." "Yes," Lily nodded eagerly. "Mrs. Montgomery said they have medical facilities in their home where you could stay. We could be together again, Grandma, and I could go to school." Martha was quiet for a long moment, her eyes studying Lily's face. "This sounds like something from a fairy tale, Lily Bear." "I know," Lily admitted. "I didn't believe it either at first, but I visited their house yesterday, Grandma. It's the biggest house I've ever seen. And the guest house is like a regular house, just newer and fancier. They even have a pool inside the main house." Martha squeezed Lily's hand. "Tell me about this boy, Ethan. What's he like?" Lily's face lit up. "He's really smart and funny. He knows all about space and airplanes. His legs don't work because of something that happened when he was born, and his hands are a little weak. But he has this amazing wheelchair that he can control himself. And he doesn't treat me like I'm, poor. He just treats me like a regular friend." Martha's eyes softened at the animation in her granddaughter's face. It had been too long since she'd seen Lily this excited about anything. "And his parents?" Martha pressed. "What kind of people are they?" Mr. Montgomery is kind of serious, but not mean. He asks a lot of questions and really listens to the answers. Mrs. Montgomery is nice. She makes sure I have enough to eat and doesn't make me feel bad about my clothes or anything." Lily paused. "I think they're good people, Grandma. They really love Ethan." Martha nodded slowly, taking this in. "And they've spoken to the director here? About me?" "Yes. They want to meet you too. They said they'd come next visiting day if you want." Lily squeezed her grandmother's hand. "What do you think, Grandma? Should we say yes?" Martha looked past Lily to the shelter's dormitory, the rows of identical beds, the lack of privacy, the well-intentioned but overworked staff. She had been grateful for the place, certainly. After the hospital discharged her following her stroke, St. Mary's had been the only option besides the street. But she hated being separated from Lily, worrying constantly about her granddaughter's safety. "I think," Martha said carefully, "that we should meet these Montgomerys together before making any decisions. But Lily," she touched her granddaughter's cheek gently, "if they're offering you education, safety, a chance for a better life, I want that for you, whether I'm included or not." "No," Lily said firmly. "We stay together. That's the deal. The Montgomerys understand that." Martha smiled, pride shining in her eyes. "You've grown up so much these past months. Too much, too fast," she sighed. "Bring them next Tuesday. I'll wear my good sweater." The Montgomery estate was unusually quiet on Saturday morning. Catherine was attending a charity board meeting, and Robert had flown to San Francisco for a technology conference. The staff moved efficiently but silently through their duties, maintaining the immaculate order of the massive home. In the East Wing, Ethan sat in the game room, staring absently at the paused screen of his latest video game. Normally, he would have been immersed in the virtual world, navigating his character through complex challenges designed to improve his hand coordination. Today, however, his mind was elsewhere. The door opened and Ms. Jenkins, his mother's personal assistant, entered. At 35, Alicia Jenkins was a study in efficient elegance. Her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, her crisp pantsuit impeccably tailored, her tablet never far from her grasp. "Good morning, Ethan," she said with a small smile. "I've brought the items your mother requested for Lily's room in the guest house. Would you like to help me arrange them?" Ethan's face brightened immediately. "Yes, what did Mom get?" Ms. Jenkins consulted her tablet. "Bedding, towels, some basic clothing essentials, toiletries, and a few books. Your mother thought it would be nice to have the room ready before Lily's next visit, though of course she can personalize it more later. Can we go now?" Ethan was already maneuvering his wheelchair toward the door. "Of course. Davidson is waiting to drive us to the guest house." The guest house sat at the edge of the Montgomery property, connected to the main house by a winding stone path. Originally built to accommodate visiting executives and business associates, it had rarely been used in recent years as Robert preferred to put guests up at luxury hotels. The two-story structure featured 3 bedrooms, a fully equipped kitchen, a spacious living room, and a small office. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the surrounding woodland that bordered the property, creating a sense of peaceful seclusion despite being only a few hundred yards from the main house. Davidson helped Ethan navigate the path, which had been recently modified to accommodate his wheelchair. Inside, Ethan directed operations with unexpected authority, instructing Ms. Jenkins on exactly where each item should go in the bedroom they had designated for Lily. "The blue bedding," he insisted, "not the pink. Lily doesn't seem like a pink kind of person." "Ms." Jenkins hid a smile as she exchanged the pink comforter for the blue one she'd brought as an alternative. "You seem to know her preferences quite well already." "We talk a lot," Ethan explained, watching critically as Ms. Jenkins made the bed. "She likes blue and green and stars. She knows all the constellations. She taught herself from library books." "That's impressive," Ms. Jenkins remarked, genuinely surprised. "Perhaps we should get her some astronomy books as well." "Already thought of that," Ethan said, gesturing to a small stack of books on the nightstand. "Dad ordered these yesterday. This one has star charts specific to Boston's latitude." Ms. Jenkins picked up the book, noting its professional quality. It wasn't a children's book, but a serious astronomical reference. "This is very thoughtful, Ethan. I want her to feel welcome," Ethan said, suddenly looking uncertain. "Do you think she will? It's not too much, is it?" The vulnerability in his question caught Ms. Jenkins off guard. In the 3 years she had worked for the Montgomerys, She had always found Ethan to be polite but distant, seemingly more comfortable with his books and technology than with people. This earnest concern for another person's feelings was new. "I think it's just right," she assured him. "You're being a good friend." Ethan nodded, relieved. "Can we put some snacks in the kitchen too? Lily's always hungry. Of course, I've already stocked the pantry and refrigerator with basics, but we can add some special treats if you have suggestions." "Peanut butter crackers," Ethan said immediately. "And those apple juice boxes I have with lunch. And maybe some of Mrs. Peterson's chocolate chip cookies." "I'll speak to Mrs. Peterson about the cookies, Ms." Jenkins promised, making a note on her tablet. They continued through the house with Ethan offering suggestions for each room. In the small office, he insisted they set up a computer so Lily can do research and homework. In the living room, he suggested adding a collection of board games, because sometimes the power goes out when it storms, and you need non-electronic entertainment options. His detailed planning revealed not just thoughtfulness, but a practical understanding of potential needs that surprised Ms. Jenkins. There was a maturity to his considerations that she hadn't expected from an 8-year-old. As they finished their preparations, Ethan wheeled himself to the center of the living room and looked around with satisfaction. "I think it looks good. Homey, right?" "Very homey," Miss Jenkins agreed. "I'm sure Lily will love it." "I hope her grandma can come too," Ethan said, his expression growing serious. "Lily really misses her. She says her grandma used to make the best macaroni and cheese in the world." "Your parents are working on arrangements for Mrs. Thompson," Ms. Jenkins assured him. "If the doctors approve her transfer, we'll set up the medical suite in the south wing for her." Ethan nodded, processing this information. "Ms. Jenkins." "Yes, Ethan. Do you think Lily and her grandma will stay? Like, permanently?" The question held a weight that made Ms. Jenkins choose her words carefully. "I think your parents are committed to helping them for as long as they need it. Whether that's permanent depends on many factors." "What factors?" "Well, legal considerations for one. Your parents are working with lawyers to establish guardianship, which is necessary for school enrollment and medical decisions. Then there's the matter of Lily and her grandmother's wishes. They may eventually want their own independent living arrangement." Ethan frowned, clearly not having considered this possibility. "But they don't have anywhere else to go." "For now," Ms. Jenkins agreed gently. "But part of your parents' help might include assisting Mrs. Thompson in regaining her independence once she's healthier. That's something adults typically value highly." Ethan was quiet for a moment, absorbing this. "I don't want Lily to leave," he said finally, his voice small. "She's the only person who doesn't treat me differently." Ms. Jenkins felt a pang of sympathy. Despite his family's wealth and privilege, Ethan's life had been marked by isolation, partly due to his physical condition, but perhaps more significantly, due to others' reactions to it. In Lily, he had found someone who saw past his wheelchair to the person inside. "Even if arrangements change in the future," she said carefully, "friendships can last. The connection you've made with Lily doesn't depend on her living in the guest house." Ethan didn't look entirely convinced, but he nodded. "I guess. I just want to help her the way she helped me." "And how did she help you, Ethan?" Ms. Jenkins asked, genuinely curious. Ethan's answer was simple but profound. "She made me feel normal." The word hung in the air between them. Normal. Such a common concept for most people, but for Ethan, it represented something precious and rare. Ms. Jenkins wondered if the Montgomerys fully understood the significance of what had happened between these two children, how a girl with nothing had given their son something his parents' billions couldn't buy. "We should head back to the main house," she said finally. "Your physical therapy session starts in 30 minutes. As Davidson helped Ethan back along the path, the boy took one last look at the guest house. "It'll work," he said, more to himself than to Miss Jenkins. "It has to." In that moment, Ms. Jenkins realized that for all the planning and preparation, for all the legal consultations and arrangements, the true driving force behind this unusual situation was the determination of an 8-year-old boy who had found his first real friend and was resolved not to lose her. The first rays of morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow across Lily's new bedroom. She blinked awake, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings, the soft mattress beneath her, the clean sheets, the spacious room with its pale blue walls. For a moment, she thought she might be dreaming. But this was real. This was her third day in the Montgomery guest house, and she was still struggling to believe it. Lily sat up and hugged her knees to her chest, taking in the room that still felt too big, too nice to be hers. A wooden bookshelf stood against one wall, already filled with books Ethan had selected for her. Adventure stories, science books, and several volumes about astronomy. A desk beneath the window held a sleek laptop computer that Mrs. Montgomery had shown her how to use. The closet contained more clothes than Lily had ever owned in her life, most of them still with tags attached. It was overwhelming, wonderful, but overwhelming. A gentle knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Lily, are you awake?" It was Mrs. Montgomery's voice. "Yes, I'm up," Lily called back. The door opened and Catherine Montgomery entered, already dressed for the day in a casual but elegant outfit. She carried a tray with a glass of orange juice and what looked like paperwork. "Good morning," she said with a warm smile. "Did you sleep well?" Lily nodded. "Yes, ma'am, thank you." "I've told you. You can call me Catherine," she reminded gently, setting the tray on the bedside table. "I brought you some juice and I thought we might go over your school enrollment forms before breakfast, if you feel up to it." "School forms?" Lily repeated, suddenly nervous. It had been months since she'd attended school regularly, and even then, it had been a crowded public school where she'd often struggled to keep up after missing days to help care for her grandmother. Catherine sat on the edge of the bed. "Brookfield Academy has agreed to accept you for their spring semester, starting next week. It's where Ethan would go if he didn't require home tutoring." She paused, studying Lily's expression. "Are you worried about school?" Lily fiddled with the edge of her blanket. "What if I'm too far behind? I missed a lot of school this year." "That's actually something we've considered," Catherine said. "The headmistress suggested we have you assessed to determine where you are academically. Based on those results, we can either place you with your age group or, if necessary, arrange for additional tutoring to help you catch up." She smiled reassuringly. "There's no pressure, Lily. Education is a journey, not a race." Lily took the glass of juice and sipped it slowly, considering this. "Will the other kids know?" "About me, I mean. That I was homeless?" Catherine supplied gently when Lily trailed off. "Not unless you choose to tell them. Your background is your story to share or keep private as you see fit." Relief washed over Lily. She'd been worried about being labeled, about being the homeless kid in a school full of wealthy children. "Thank you," she said quietly. Catherine squeezed her hand. "Now, shall we look at these forms? There's quite a lot of information we need to fill in." They spent the next half hour going through paperwork, Catherine patiently explaining each section. When they came to the emergency contact information, Catherine hesitated. "Lily, there's something important we need to discuss," she said, her tone growing more serious. "For you to attend Brookfield, and for us to make medical decisions if necessary, we need legal authorization. Mr. Montgomery and I have spoken with our lawyers about becoming your temporary legal guardians." Lily set down her empty juice glass. "What does that mean, exactly?" "It means we would have the legal right to make decisions on your behalf about your education, medical care, and general welfare, until your grandmother recovers enough to resume that role herself," Catherine explained. "It doesn't change your relationship with your grandmother. She would still be your primary family. We would just be helping officially." "Like substitute parents?" Lily asked. Catherine smiled slightly. "Yes, something like that. It's a temporary arrangement that can be adjusted as circumstances change. But it requires your agreement and your grandmother's. Have you talked to Grandma about it?" "Yes, when we visited her yesterday. She thinks it's the best option for now, but she wanted us to discuss it with you separately to make sure you understand and are comfortable with the arrangement." Lily thought about this. The Montgomerys had been nothing but kind to her. They'd given her a safe place to stay, arranged for her grandmother's transfer to their home medical suite, scheduled for next week, and now were offering her education at what was probably a very expensive school. Most importantly, Ethan was the best friend she'd ever had. "I think I'm okay with it," she said finally, "as long as Grandma is too." Catherine nodded, looking relieved. "Wonderful. We'll have the papers drawn up, and once your grandmother arrives, we can make it official." She glanced at her watch. "Now, I believe Mrs. Peterson has made blueberry pancakes for breakfast. Ethan is probably already waiting impatiently for us in the dining room." The Montgomery dining room could have comfortably seated 20 people, but these days meals were served at one end of the long mahogany table. Ethan was indeed waiting when Lily and Catherine arrived, his wheelchair positioned at his usual spot, where a section of the table had been modified to the perfect height. "Finally," he exclaimed when he saw them. "I've been waiting forever." "It's been approximately 12 minutes, Mr. Ethan," Mrs. Peterson corrected good-naturedly as she entered from the kitchen carrying a platter of pancakes. The cook was a plump, cheerful woman in her 50s who seemed to take personal offense if anyone left her table hungry. "That's forever in pancake time," Ethan insisted, making Lily giggle. As they ate, Ethan dominated the conversation with plans for the day. "Dad's taking us to the Museum of Science this afternoon," he informed Lily excitedly. "They have this new exhibit on space exploration with actual pieces of meteorites you can touch, and a planetarium show about black holes." "Really?" Lily's eyes widened with interest. She'd never been to a museum before. "Mr. Montgomery has arranged a private tour before regular hours," Catherine explained. "It will be easier for Ethan to navigate without crowds and more enjoyable for all of us." "Is that normal?" Lily asked hesitantly. "Getting a whole museum to yourself?" Ethan snorted. "Nothing about my family is normal, Lily." Catherine gave her son a wry look. "What Ethan means is that yes, we sometimes make special arrangements to accommodate his needs. The museum is happy to do so, especially since the Montgomery Foundation is one of their major donors." Lily nodded, though she was still adjusting to the reality of how wealth could reshape the world to its convenience. It was so different from her previous life, where even small obstacles could become insurmountable without resources. After breakfast, Ethan suggested they explore the grounds while waiting for his father to return from his morning meetings. The Montgomery estate included several acres of landscaped gardens, a small orchard, and a wooded area with walking paths. "We need to bundle up, though," Ethan said, already directing his wheelchair toward the coat closet. "It's pretty cold out today." Catherine helped them both into warm outerwear, a new down jacket for Lily that was lighter yet warmer than any coat she'd ever worn, and a specially designed coat for Ethan that was easier to put on with his limited mobility. "Stay on the paved paths," Catherine instructed as they headed outside. "And Ethan, remember to keep your phone with you." "We know, Mom," Ethan said with the long-suffering tone of a child who has heard the same warnings countless times. Outside, the December air was crisp and cold, but the sun shone brightly in a clear blue sky. Ethan led the way along a smooth path that wound through bare flower beds and dormant shrubs. "It's prettier in spring," he told Lily. "Mom has the gardeners plant thousands of bulbs every fall, so there are flowers everywhere by April." "It's beautiful even now," Lily said honestly. After months of concrete and asphalt, the open green space felt luxurious. They followed the path to a small pond, currently frozen over, where Ethan explained they had koi fish that were now hibernating in the deeper water. Beyond the pond stood a structure that caught Lily's attention, a glass building gleaming in the sunlight. "What's that?" she asked, pointing. "The greenhouse," Ethan replied. "Want to see? It's warm inside, and there are flowers blooming all year round." Inside the greenhouse, Lily gasped in delight. While winter reigned outside, here it was perpetually spring. Vibrant flowers in every color imaginable filled the space, their sweet fragrance mingling in the humid air. Elaborate irrigation systems delivered precise amounts of water to each section, and growing lights supplemented the natural sunlight. "This is amazing," Lily breathed, gently touching the petal of a brilliant orange lily. "It's like a piece of magic. It was my mom's project," Ethan explained, maneuvering his wheelchair down the central aisle. "She says everyone needs beauty in their life, especially during winter when everything outside is gray and brown." They spent nearly an hour in the greenhouse, with Ethan identifying the plants he knew and Lily marveling at varieties she'd never seen before. In one corner, they discovered a small table and chairs nestled among tropical plants. "Mum comes here to read sometimes," Ethan said. "She says it's her thinking spot." Lily could understand why. There was something peaceful about the greenhouse, the gentle humming of the climate control system, the earthy smell of the soil, the vibrant life thriving despite the winter outside. "Ethan," she said suddenly, "do you ever feel, I don't know, different from other kids?" Ethan gave her a wry look and patted his wheelchair. Obviously." Lily blushed. "No, I mean, I know about your wheelchair. I meant because of..." She gestured vaguely around them. indicating the greenhouse, the estate, the privilege that surrounded them. "Oh, you mean the rich thing?" Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, sometimes, especially when Dad has to rent out entire museums just so I can see an exhibit without people staring at me." He shrugged. "But it's just normal for me, I guess. Like how being—" He paused, clearly searching for a tactful word. "Homeless?" Lily supplied. "Yeah. Like how that was normal for you, even though it wasn't normal for most people." Lily considered this. "I guess we're both kind of outliers, huh? Just in opposite directions." "Outliers," Ethan repeated, clearly approving of the term. "I like that. It sounds better than weird." They shared a smile of understanding, and in that moment their vastly different backgrounds seemed less important than the connection they'd formed. The peaceful moment was interrupted by the buzz of Ethan's phone. He pulled it from his pocket and checked the screen. "Dad's home," he announced. "He says to meet him at the house in 15 minutes to leave for the museum." As they made their way back along the path, Lily found herself reflecting on how quickly her life had changed. Less than a week ago, she had been huddled in her makeshift shelter, wondering where her next meal would come from. Now she was going to a science museum with a billionaire and his son, wearing clothes that probably cost more than everything she'd owned before combined. "Ethan," she said as the main house came into view, "do you think I'll ever get used to all this?" Ethan considered the question seriously. "Probably. Humans can adapt to almost anything. That's what my science tutor says anyway." He glanced at her. "Does it feel wrong? Being here, I mean." "Not wrong, exactly. Just unreal. Like I might wake up and be back on the street." "You won't," Ethan said with unexpected fierceness. "I won't let that happen." The conviction in his voice made Lily smile. "You sound pretty sure about that." "I am. My dad always says that once a Montgomery decides something is going to happen, it happens." His expression grew solemn. "And I've decided you're staying." The simple confidence in his statement touched Lily deeply. In her 8 years of life, few people had ever fought for her presence, for her well-being. Her grandmother had, of course, but circumstances had overwhelmed even her fierce love. Now this boy, who had every material advantage but had lacked real friendship, was declaring himself her champion, with the unwavering certainty that only a child could possess. "Then I guess I'm staying," Lily said, matching his serious tone, but unable to suppress a smile. Ethan's answering grin was bright enough to rival the winter sun above them. "Good. Because the space exhibit has an actual moon rock, and I didn't want to see it without you." Spring arrived in Boston with an explosion of color and life. The Montgomery estate transformed as dormant gardens awakened. Crocuses and daffodils pushed through the soil, cherry trees burst into delicate pink blossoms, and the air filled with the sweet scent of new growth. Inside the main house, the atmosphere had undergone a similar transformation over the past 3 months. Martha Thompson, now comfortably settled in the medical suite of the Montgomery home, sat in her wheelchair on the terrace, enjoying the morning sunshine. At 72, she had survived a stroke that doctors initially feared might claim her life, then endured months in a shelter while worrying constantly about her granddaughter. Now, thanks to the expert care she received and the peace of mind that came with knowing Lily was safe, Martha was making remarkable progress. "More tea, Mrs. Thompson?" asked Ellen, the nurse assigned to Martha's care. "Yes, please," Martha replied, her speech slightly slurred but much improved from the nearly unintelligible mumbling of 3 months ago. "And please call me Martha. We've been through this." Ellen smiled as she refilled the teacup. "Force of habit, professional boundaries and all that." "Nonsense," Martha said firmly. "You help me bathe and dress every morning. So I'd say we're well past formalities." From her position on the terrace, Martha could see across the lawns to where Lily and Ethan were engaged in what appeared to be an intense game of chess on a giant outdoor board. The oversized pieces were easier for Ethan to manipulate with his limited hand dexterity, and Lily had taken to the game with surprising aptitude. Martha watched as her granddaughter carefully considered her move, her face scrunched in concentration. The change in Lily over these months had been nothing short of miraculous. Gone was the perpetually hungry, constantly vigilant child who had been forced to grow up too quickly. In her place was a girl who laughed freely, who had regained the curiosity and playfulness that poverty had nearly extinguished. "She's flourishing here," Martha murmured, more to herself than to Ellen. "She certainly is," Ellen agreed, following Martha's gaze. Mrs. Montgomery says she's at the top of her class in science and mathematics. Apparently her teacher thinks she might have a gift for it. Martha nodded, pride warming her chest. She's always been clever, just never had the chance to show it before. The sound of approaching footsteps drew Martha's attention. Catherine Montgomery appeared, dressed casually in slacks and a light sweater, her blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. "Good morning, Martha," she greeted warmly. "You picked a beautiful spot to enjoy your tea." "It's impossible to find a spot on this property that isn't beautiful," Martha replied with a smile. "Would you join me?" "I'd love to." Catherine settled into the chair beside Martha's wheelchair. "Ellen, would you mind giving us a few minutes?" "Of course not." The nurse discreetly withdrew, leaving the two women alone. Martha had come to genuinely like Catherine Montgomery over the past months. Beneath the polished exterior of a wealthy philanthropist was a woman of surprising depth and authenticity, someone who genuinely cared about making a difference in the world, starting with her own family. "How are you feeling today?" Catherine asked, her gaze assessing Martha with the same attentiveness she brought to everything. "Better every day," Martha replied honestly. "Doctor, Patel says my progress is exceeding expectations. I might even be able to start using a walker soon instead of this chair." "That's wonderful news," Catherine said. "Lily will be thrilled." Martha's expression grew more serious. "Catherine, there's something I've been wanting to discuss with you." "Of course, anything." Martha turned slightly to face Catherine more directly. "It's been 3 months since you and Robert took us in. 3 months of generosity beyond anything I could have imagined." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I need to know what happens next." Catherine tilted her head slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, this can't go on indefinitely. Your temporary guardianship of Lily, my stay in your medical suite, these were emergency measures, not permanent solutions." "Do you feel unwelcome?" Catherine asked, genuine concern in her voice. "Not at all," Martha assured her. "That's part of what worries me. You've all made us feel so at home that it would be easy to forget this isn't actually our home." She gestured toward Lily and Ethan on the lawn. "Those two have formed a bond that would be cruel to break. And yet, I can't help but wonder what your long-term plan is for us." Catherine was quiet for a moment, considering her response. "Robert and I have discussed this extensively," she said finally. "Our original intention was simply to help a child who had shown kindness to our son. But over these months, it's evolved into something more." Martha waited, sensing there was more to come. "The truth is, Martha, Lily has brought something to this house that was missing before. A certain lightness, joy, normalcy." Catherine's gaze drifted to the children. "Ethan has changed since she came. He's more confident, more engaged with the world. His physical therapist says he's making progress she hadn't thought possible. Lily has changed too," Martha acknowledged. "She's a child again, not a little adult forced to survive on her own." Catherine turned back to Martha, her expression earnest. "We would like to offer a more permanent arrangement. Not adoption. Lily is your granddaughter, and that bond is sacred. But perhaps a long-term guardianship, with you remaining very much in her life as her grandmother." "And what would that look like, practically speaking?" Martha asked, her pragmatic nature asserting itself. "We've recently purchased a small house about 10 minutes from here," Catherine explained. "It's single-level, fully accessible, with a garden and plenty of natural light. It would be yours for as long as you need it. Lily would continue her education at Brookfield, living primarily here during the week for school, but spending weekends and holidays with you. As your health continues to improve, that arrangement could evolve." Martha blinked in surprise. "You bought a house for me?" "For you and Lily," Catherine corrected gently. "We wanted you to have independence and privacy, but also remain close enough to maintain the connection between our families." Martha was momentarily speechless. The thoughtfulness of the arrangement, acknowledging both her need for autonomy and Lily's need for stability, was overwhelming. "That's extraordinarily generous," she said finally. "It's not entirely altruistic," Catherine admitted with a small smile. "We've grown quite attached to Lily, and as I said, she's been wonderful for Ethan." Martha looked out at the children again. Ethan was laughing at something Lily had said, his head thrown back in uninhibited joy. It was a sound that, according to Catherine, had been rare before Lily's arrival. "I won't live forever," Martha said quietly. "My health is improving, but at my age, with my medical history, Well, let's just say I'm practical about these things. Martha, Catherine began, but Martha held up a hand to stop her. No, it needs to be said. I need to know that Lily will be cared for when I'm gone. That she won't end up back on the streets or lost in the foster care system. That will never happen, Catherine said firmly. Robert and I have already arranged for a trust fund for Lily's education and future needs. And yes, if something were to happen to you, we would assume full guardianship with your blessing. Martha felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes, not tears of sadness, but of profound relief. The weight of worry that had been her constant companion for years, even before their homelessness, began to lift. You've thought of everything, she said softly. We try to, Catherine replied with a gentle smile. It's something of a Montgomery trait, thorough planning. When can I see this house? Martha asked, her practical side reasserting itself. Whenever you'd like. It's ready now, furnished, equipped, everything. We can go today if you're feeling up to it. Martha nodded decisively. Yes, today. But first I want to talk to Lily about all this. Of course. Would you like me to call her over now? Please. Catherine stood and walked to the edge of the terrace. Lily, Ethan, could you come here for a moment? The children looked up from their game. Lily said something to Ethan, who nodded, and she jogged across the lawn while he followed more slowly in his wheelchair. Hi, Grandma. Hi, Mrs. Montgomery, Lily called as she approached, her cheeks flushed from the outdoor activity. At 8.5, she had grown an inch since coming to live with the Montgomerys, and her formerly thin face had filled out to healthy roundness. Her blonde hair, once tangled and dull, now shone in a neat braid down her back. Hello, sweetheart, Martha greeted, holding out her arms for a hug, which Lily enthusiastically provided. Who's winning the chess match? Ethan, Lily admitted with a grin, but only because I let him take my bishop. That is not true, Ethan protested as he maneuvered his wheelchair up the ramp to the terrace. I captured your bishop fair and square with a brilliant tactical move. If you say so, Lily teased, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Martha exchanged a glance with Catherine, both women smiling at the children's banter. It was so normal, so healthy. Exactly what childhood friendships should be. Lily, Martha said, Mrs. Montgomery and I have been discussing something important that concerns you, about our future. Lily's expression immediately grew serious, a flash of her old wariness returning. What kind of future? Martha reached for her granddaughter's hand. Good things, honey. Mrs. Montgomery has just told me that they've bought a house for us, a place where I can live independently as I continue to recover, and where you can stay with me on weekends and holidays. Lily's eyes widened. A real house? Just for us. Just for us, Martha confirmed. But you would continue going to Brookfield Academy, which means staying here with the Montgomerys during the school week. Lily glanced between her grandmother and Catherine, clearly processing this information. So, I'd have 2 homes, here and with you. That's right, Catherine said gently. We thought this arrangement would give you the best of both worlds, continued education and time with Ethan, plus regular time with your grandmother in your own family home. What do you think about that, Lily? Martha asked, watching her granddaughter carefully. Lily bit her lip, thinking, would it be far away, the new house? About 10 minutes by car, Catherine answered. And we could visit each other, right? Lily looked at Ethan. You could come to our house sometimes too. Absolutely, Catherine assured her. That's part of why we chose a place so close by. Lily seemed to relax at this. Can I see it? The house? We're planning to go today, Martha told her. Mrs. Montgomery says it's all ready for us to look at. Can Ethan come too? Lily asked. If he wants to, Catherine said, looking to her son. Of course I want to, Ethan declared. I need to make sure it meets my approval. Martha chuckled at his serious tone. Well, we certainly wouldn't want to move into a house that doesn't have Ethan Montgomery's seal of approval. Exactly, Ethan said with a solemn nod that made everyone laugh. As the laughter subsided, Martha noticed something in Lily's expression, a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. What's on your mind, Lily Bear? Lily hesitated, then asked in a small voice, What if something happens to you, Grandma? Where would I go then? The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of a child who had already experienced too much loss and instability. Martha felt her heart constrict, but before she could respond, Catherine spoke. Lily, If something were to happen to your grandmother, which we all hope won't be for many, many years, you would stay with us," she said gently but firmly. "We've already discussed this with your grandmother and our lawyers. You will always have a home no matter what." Lily looked to Martha for confirmation. "Is that true, Grandma?" "Yes, sweetheart," Martha said, squeezing her hand. "I've made sure of it. No more uncertainty for you." The relief that washed over Lily's face was profound, a burden visibly lifting from her young shoulders. She threw her arms around her grandmother again, hugging her tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. Over Lily's shoulder, Martha's eyes met Catherine's. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between the two women, a recognition of their shared commitment to this child who had brought them together in the most unexpected way. "So," Ethan said, breaking the emotional moment with the practical directness of an 8-year-old, "when are we going to see this house?" "I have a physical therapy appointment at 4, so we should probably go soon." Catherine laughed. "Always the scheduler, Ethan. Yes, we can go now. I'll have Davidson bring the van around." As Catherine stepped away to make the arrangements, Lily knelt beside her grandmother's wheelchair. "Are you happy about the house, Grandma?" Martha stroked her granddaughter's cheek gently. "Yes, Lily Bear. It's more than I ever dared hope for. But what matters most to me is that you're happy and secure." "I am," Lily said with a certainty that warmed Martha's heart. "I really am." Ethan, watching this exchange, added, "And you're still coming for our sleepover on Friday, right? Dad got that new telescope, and he said we could stay up late to look at the stars." "I wouldn't miss it," Lily assured him with a grin. As Davidson arrived with the wheelchair-accessible van, Martha reflected on the strange and wonderful turns life could take. 3 months ago, she had been in a shelter, separated from her granddaughter, with little hope for the future. Now they were being given a second chance, not just at survival, but at truly living, all because a little girl had offered half a loaf of bread to a lonely boy in a wheelchair. Sometimes, Martha thought as she was helped into the van, the smallest acts of kindness could create the most profound changes. 5 years later, the auditorium of Brookfield Academy buzzed with excitement as families filed in for the annual Science and Innovation Fair. Banners proclaiming "Future Scientists Today" hung from the ceiling, and rows of display boards lined the main floor, each representing months of work by the school's brightest students. Near the center of the room stood 13-year-old Lily Thompson, making last-minute adjustments to her presentation. Her project, Adaptive Technology for Enhanced Mobility, featured a modified joystick controller that could be operated with minimal hand strength and dexterity. Beside the controller sat a laptop displaying a 3D model of a wheelchair that incorporated her innovations. "Stop fidgeting with it," Ethan Montgomery said, maneuvering his wheelchair alongside her display. "You're going to break something, and then where will we be?" "I'm not going to break it," Lily protested, though she did step back from the display. "I just want everything to be perfect when the judges come around." At 13, Ethan had grown into a thoughtful, articulate young man. Years of physical therapy had improved his upper body strength, though his legs remained paralyzed. His wheelchair was now a sleek, customized model that incorporated some of Lily's earlier design suggestions. "It already is perfect," he assured her. "You've been working on this for months. You know every detail inside and out." Lily took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she wore the Brookfield uniform, a navy blazer over a white shirt and plaid skirt. On her blazer lapel gleamed a silver pin, recognizing her as a recipient of the school's prestigious STEM scholarship. "I just want to make your dad proud," she admitted quietly. "He invested so much in this project." "He's already proud," Ethan said confidently. "He wouldn't stop talking about your designs at breakfast this morning. Mom finally had to change the subject just so he'd eat something." Lily smiled at this image of Robert Montgomery, tech billionaire and renowned innovator, too excited about her project to eat his breakfast. Over the past 5 years, Robert had evolved from an intimidating figure to a mentor who recognized and nurtured her growing interest in engineering and adaptive technology. "There they are now," Ethan said, nodding toward the entrance. Robert and Catherine Montgomery were making their way through the crowd, stopping occasionally to greet other parents or teachers. Behind them came Martha Thompson, walking slowly but steadily with the aid of a cane. At 77, Martha had defied medical expectations, regaining much of her independence through sheer determination and excellent care. Lily waved to catch their attention, and the three adults made their way to her display. "There's our brilliant inventor," Catherine said warmly, giving Lily a quick hug. "Are you ready for the judges?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Lily replied, smoothing her skirt nervously. Robert approached the display, examining the modified controller with professional interest. "You made some changes to the pressure sensitivity since I last saw it." "Yes," Lily confirmed. "I realized the original calibration required too much consistent force for someone with muscle weakness. The new settings respond to much lighter touch, but still filter out accidental movements." Robert nodded approvingly. "Smart adjustment, very user-focused." "That's our Lily," Martha said proudly, reaching out to squeeze her granddaughter's hand. "Always thinking about how to make life better for others." Over the past 5 years, the arrangement between the Montgomerys and the Thompsons had evolved into something none of them could have predicted. What began as temporary assistants had grown into a blended family of sorts. Lily split her time between the Montgomery estate, where she attended Brookfield Academy, and collaborated with Ethan on various projects, and the accessible house where Martha lived independently with part-time assistants. The house initially purchased by the Montgomerys was now legally Martha's, a transfer of ownership that had been Robert's idea, giving Martha the security of home ownership while maintaining a generous maintenance fund to ensure she never had to worry about upkeep or repairs. "The judges are starting their rounds," Ethan observed, noticing a group of adults with clipboards entering the auditorium. "You should take your position, Lily." "Right." Lily took another deep breath, mentally reviewing her presentation one last time. "We'll step back and let you work your magic," Catherine said, guiding Martha toward the visitor seating area. "Come on, Robert." "You too, Ethan." "Actually," Lily said quickly, "I'd like Ethan to stay. He's part of the presentation." Ethan looked surprised. "I am? Of course. Who better to demonstrate how the controller works than the person who helped me test every prototype?" A slow smile spread across Ethan's face. "Well, when you put it that way." As Robert and Catherine joined Martha in the visitor area, Lily positioned Ethan's wheelchair beside her display. "Just follow my cues," she whispered, "and remember to emphasize how much easier the new controller is to use." "Got it," Ethan replied, giving her a thumbs up. "We've got this, Lily." From her seat, Martha watched the two teenagers with a mixture of pride and amazement. The transformation in both of them over the past 5 years had been remarkable. Lily had blossomed from a wary, survival-focused child into a confident, academically gifted young woman with a passion for solving problems. Ethan had grown from a lonely, isolated boy into a sociable, well-adjusted teenager who had recently been elected class president, despite attending most classes remotely. "They make quite a team, don't they?" Catherine said softly, following Martha's gaze. "They always have," Martha agreed. "From that very first day at the park." The judges approached Lily's display, and both women fell silent, watching as Lily launched into her presentation with poise and clarity. She explained the technical aspects of her controller design, then invited Ethan to demonstrate how it worked with his wheelchair. "Traditional controllers require a consistent level of force that can be difficult for users with certain conditions," Lily explained to the judges. "My design adapts to the user's strength level, making it accessible to people with a wider range of abilities." Ethan smoothly demonstrated the controller, showing how it responded to his touch with minimal effort. "Before this design," he added, "I sometimes had days when my hands were too weak to operate my chair effectively. This controller would have made a huge difference." The judges asked several questions, which Lily answered with confidence and technical precision. When they finally moved on to the next display, Catherine leaned over to Martha. "She was magnificent," she whispered. "She always is," Martha replied, her eyes shining with pride. After the judges completed their rounds, there was a break before the awards ceremony. Lily and Ethan joined the adults, both looking relieved that the presentation was over. "You were brilliant," Robert told Lily, his usual reserve softened by genuine admiration. "The way you explained the adaptive calibration algorithm was clearer than most of my engineers could manage." Lily blushed at the praise. "Thanks, Mr. Montgomery." "I've told you 1,000 times to call me Robert," he reminded her with a smile. "I know, but it still feels weird," Lily admitted. You. Robert laughed, a warm sound that had become more frequent over the years. "Fair enough. But remember, someday you might be working alongside me at Montgomery Innovations, and then you'll have to get over it." The casual mention of a future at his company made Lily stand a little straighter. It wasn't the first time Robert had hinted at a place for her in his technology empire, but each mention sent a thrill of possibility through her. "Speaking of the future," Catherine said, "Martha and I have been discussing summer plans. We were thinking a trip to the adaptive sports camp in Colorado might be good for both of you." She looked between Lily and Ethan. "What do you think?" "The one with the rock climbing wall?" Ethan asked eagerly. "And adaptive kayaking?" "That's the one," Catherine confirmed. 2 weeks in July. Martha would come too, of course. "If you young people don't mind having an old lady along," Martha added with a twinkle in her eye. "You're not old, Grandma," Lily protested automatically. "You're seasoned." Everyone laughed at this diplomatic phrasing. "Well, this seasoned woman would love to see the mountains," Martha said. "I've never been further west than Buffalo, New York." "Then it's settled," Catherine declared. "Assuming you two are interested." "Definitely," Ethan and Lily responded in unison. Their synchronized response prompted another round of laughter, which was interrupted by the sound of the microphone being tapped. The principal of Brookfield Academy was calling everyone to attention for the awards ceremony. "Let's find our seats," Robert suggested, guiding the group toward the audience section. As they settled in, Lily found herself between Ethan and her grandmother. She reached for Martha's hand, a gesture that had become habitual over the years, a silent affirmation of their connection, their shared journey from desperate poverty to this new life. Martha squeezed her hand in return, leaning over to whisper, "No matter what happens with the awards, I am so proud of you, Lily Bear." "Thanks, Grandma," Lily whispered back. "But you know what? Even if I don't win anything today, I still feel like the luckiest person in this room." Martha nodded in understanding. They both knew that the true victory wasn't a ribbon or trophy, but the life they had built from the ashes of their former existence, a life rich with purpose, security, and love. The principal began announcing awards, starting with honorable mentions and working up to the grand prize. Lily listened attentively, applauding for her classmates as they were recognized for their achievements. "And now," the principal said, "the moment we've all been waiting for. The grand prize of this year's Science and Innovation Fair goes to a project that impressed our judges not only with its technical sophistication, but with its potential for real-world impact. The winner is Lily Thompson for Adaptive Technology for Enhanced Mobility." For a moment, Lily sat frozen in shock. Then Ethan nudged her gently. "That's you," he whispered, grinning. "Go!" Rising on legs that suddenly felt unsteady, Lily made her way to the stage. The principal handed her a trophy, a beautiful crystal piece shaped like a DNA helix, and a certificate announcing a substantial scholarship prize. "Congratulations, Ms. Thompson," the principal said, shaking her hand. "Would you like to say a few words?" Facing the audience, Lily spotted her unusual family immediately. Martha beaming with pride, Catherine wiping away a tear, Robert nodding encouragingly, and Ethan giving her a thumbs up. They were a mismatched group, brought together by circumstance and bound together by choice, but they were hers. "I want to thank the judges for this honor," Lily began, her voice growing stronger as she spoke, "and my teachers for their guidance. But mostly, I want to thank the people who made this possible in ways that go far beyond science and engineering." She looked directly at her family as she continued. "My grandmother, Martha Thompson, who taught me that determination and dignity can survive any circumstance. The Montgomery family, Catherine, Robert, and especially Ethan, who showed me that true wealth isn't measured in dollars but in kindness and opportunity shared." Her voice grew softer, more reflective. 5 years ago, I was a homeless girl with nothing to offer but half a loaf of bread and friendship. Today I stand here because someone saw value in that offering." She glanced at Ethan, who was listening intently. "This project isn't just about making wheelchairs easier to control. It's about the principle that everyone deserves the tools they need to navigate the world on their own terms, with dignity and independence." The audience applauded warmly as Lily concluded her speech and returned to her seat, trophy in hand. As she sat down, Ethan leaned over to whisper, "That was amazing. But you forgot to mention that I was your primary test subject and suffered through 17 prototype failures." Lily grinned, grateful for his humor cutting through the emotional moment. I'll be sure to credit your suffering in my Nobel Prize acceptance speech someday." "I'll hold you to that," Ethan replied seriously, though his eyes sparkled with amusement. After the ceremony concluded, the group made their way back to Lily's display to collect her materials. Several teachers and parents stopped them to offer congratulations, and a representative from a medical technology company gave Robert his business card, expressing interest in Lily's design. "This could be the beginning of something significant," Robert told Lily as they packed up her project. "If you're interested, we could explore developing your controller design further at Montgomery Innovations. Patent it, refine it, maybe even bring it to market." Lily stared at him. "You mean, make it a real product that people could buy?" "Exactly," Robert confirmed. "People who need it. Your design has genuine potential to improve lives." Wow. Lily seemed momentarily at a loss for words, a rarity for her. "That would be incredible." Catherine placed a gentle hand on her husband's arm. "Perhaps we could discuss the details over dinner. I believe Mrs. Peterson is preparing a celebration meal, whether Lily won or not." "An excellent plan," Martha agreed. "I could use a sit-down and a cup of tea after all this excitement." As they made their way to the parking area where Davidson waited with the Montgomery's accessible van, Lily fell into step beside Ethan's wheelchair. "Did you mean what you said?" he asked quietly. "About being the luckiest person in the room?" Lily nodded without hesitation. "Absolutely. 5 years ago, I had nothing. Now I have—" She gestured vaguely, encompassing not just the trophy in her hands, but everything around them, the school, the opportunities, the family they had formed. "All this. We're the lucky ones," Ethan said seriously. "Dad told me once that the best investment he ever made wasn't in stocks or companies, but in you." "He said that?" Lily asked, surprised. "Yep. He said most investments offer financial returns, but investing in you brought something money can't buy, seeing me happy." Ethan's cheeks colored slightly at this admission. "That sounded less cheesy in my head." Lily laughed, bumping his shoulder gently with her hip as they continued toward the van. "It's not cheesy, it's nice, and for the record, you make me happy too, even when you're being annoying." "Which is never," Ethan said with mock indignation. "Which is at least 3 times a day," Lily corrected, grinning. As Davidson helped Martha into the van, Lily paused for a moment, looking back at the school building where her project had just been recognized, where her future was taking shape in ways she could never have imagined that cold day in Commonwealth Park. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Catherine asked, coming to stand beside her. "I was just thinking about how different everything could have been," Lily replied honestly. "If I hadn't gone to the park that day, if I hadn't shared my bread with Ethan, if you and Mr. Montgomery hadn't been so generous." Catherine followed her gaze toward the school, then looked back at the van where Robert was helping Ethan transfer from his wheelchair to his seat, the two of them laughing about something. Martha was already settled inside, chatting comfortably with Davidson. "Life turns on such small moments, doesn't it?" Catherine mused. "A simple act of kindness that changes everything." "It wasn't really kindness," Lily admitted. "Not entirely. I was lonely too. I just wanted a friend." "And that honesty is part of what makes you special, Lily." Catherine smiled warmly. "You never pretend to be anything other than who you are. It's a rare quality." "Are you two coming or what?" Ethan called from the van. "I'm starving and Mrs. Peterson said she's making chocolate souffle for dessert." "Heaven forbid we keep Ethan from his chocolate souffle," Catherine said with a laugh. "We'd better hurry." As they joined the others in the van, Lily clutched her trophy, feeling its solid weight in her hands, tangible proof of how far she had come. But the true measure of her journey wasn't in the Crystal Award or the scholarship certificate. It was in the faces around her, in the sense of belonging that had replaced the constant fear of her earlier life. From a homeless girl to an award-winning young inventor, from a makeshift shelter to a secure home, from solitary survival to a family created through choice rather than circumstance. As the van pulled away from Brookfield Academy, Lily leaned back in her seat, surrounded by the people who had changed her life and whose lives she had changed in return. The future stretched before her, bright with possibilities that once would have seemed impossible dreams. And it had all begun with half a loaf of bread freely shared. Dear listeners, we hope you've been moved by Lily and Ethan's journey from chance encounter to chosen family, For more emotional stories that explore the transformative power of kindness and connection, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating narratives. You'll find it by clicking the link on your left. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring you unique stories that explore life's complexities and the remarkable resilience of the human spirit. Don't miss our upcoming content. Join our community in the comments section below and share your thoughts on Lily and Ethan's story. We look forward to continuing this journey with you.